Peace and blessings, fam. Welcome to another episode of the Prolific Perspectives Podcast.
Ooh, filthy.
Professor Kaba Kamene is joining us today. Professor Kamene, how you doing today?
My brother Andre, I am doing excellent, brother. I thank you so much for this opportunity to be with, to be on the Prolific Perspectives podcast and with your community of listeners and doers. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
With the business, because one of the questions that I had written down was to talk about doing good business. This is something we've had conversations about off air in terms of how to do good business. And that's one of the main focal points for this particular podcast is to share and add value to as many people as I can in terms of business and the growth mindset and the business, being business minded or, working on personal development and growth. But when it comes to doing good business, how can we level up to, and because there's a lot of us doing good business, but for most of us or some of us who's not doing good business, and you and I know what we mean by good business, what can we do as a people to do good business to where we can take good business and turn it into great business, especially being that we were the originators of the trade of business or created business in the marketplace?
When I went to Kemet for the first time, 1983, Egypt, for those who may not know.
Right.
When I went to Kemet for the first time, we went down south to Aswan, where most of the people there are Nubian, African, because it's hot. That's the hottest part of the whole of Egypt, and that's because it's south. And I remember there was this brother, a lot of different stalls where there's vendors and market. And there was a brother there that was selling pyramids, like 3 different size pyramids, small, 3 different sizes though. And so I went to him and I said, wow, how much? He said $10. So I went and gave him $10. And he looked at me very disappointed. I didn't quite understand why. So when I got back to the hotel and we were eating dinner, I was at the table and I was talking to people about, hey, I bought these 3 pyramids, and the guy said $10, and he seemed disappointed. Everybody at the table was surprised. Later on, I was able to get together with a brother that lived there, Mohammed, and he had a boat. He had a felucca named Christmas, and we used to go on the boat, and he would take me up and down Hapi, or the Nile River. He would point things out. He brought me to the Sahara Desert. And I said to him, Muhammad, I was doing, I bought a pyramid, I bought these pyramids from the brother. He told me it was $10. But he seemed disappointed when I gave him $10. He said, well, one of the things about us is that it's not so much about the money as it is about communication. He said, next time you buy something, don't pay the first price he give you. Talk to him. Talk to him, about things. So, okay, I go back to the same brother. And I say, I really like those pyramids. And I said, I have, at the time, my son wasn't born, 83. And I said, I have my wife and my daughter, Sasha. Our older daughter was born, or was in the process of coming into being. And I said, me. I said, so there's 3 pyramids. He said, oh, okay. Yeah, interesting. I said, you have children? He said, yeah, I have children. I said, do you live here? He said, yeah, I live, because the village was right behind our hotel, the Oberoi.
Okay. And
I began to ask him how he got into his thing, and he began to ask me how to get into my thing. And I said to him, how much are the pyramids? He said, $7. I said, okay, like, do you go up to Cairo? No, I don't go to Cairo. I stay here. I said, what do you do when you enjoy your life? He said, well, I do this, I do that. You know, he was explaining to me. I said, is there a sport that you enjoy? He enjoyed soccer. He said, wow, that's interesting. I said, have you ever heard of football? He said, I've heard of football, but it's kind of crazy for people to be running around tackling each other. You know,
Right.
football is good. He said he didn't understand why
Right.
people football. And I said, oh, they, long story short, I got in conversation. Do you know I got those pyramids for $2?
Wow.
And the reason why I'm telling this story was it was in the conversation. Business is about when you get to know your customer. And that it is not, because chances are he made profit.
Right.
Okay, if he charged me $2, chances are he probably paid 70 cents for the 3.
Right.
He made a profit, but he was making a living, not a killing. But in our relationship of talking to each other, he got to know me. And I got to know him. And the quality of the business was not what we traded. It was the relationship that we created.
That's a mic drop.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I know the profit I make when I make oils.
Right.
I know the profit that I make on the oils.
Right.
And I know the price that I ask for the oils.
Right.
I know DVDs when I go to make a DVD, how much it costs to get the physical blank DVD, the labels, and the case. I know how much I pay, and I know my profit level when I sell it. So I did a presentation here in the community where I live. People came, and at the end, I was selling, at the time, DVDs. I sell more books now than anything else, but at that time, it was DVDs. And an elder sister came to me and she said, you know, I really like your, just before I was on Instagram or anything like that.
Right.
You know, she said, I really enjoy listening to you talk. And, you know, they recommended that I come hear you because I'm always talking about Africa too. She said, I really enjoy. And she said, how much are your DVDs? I said, well, they're $15. And she said, wow, I really would like one, but all I have is $10. And I said, is that your last $10? She said, yeah. She said, I'll spend it on the DVD, but that's my last $10. And I said, no, I'll take 5. Because I would never take your last money. She's an elder. I would never take your last money.
Right.
$5. And so she thanked me. She gave me $5. And then I gave her another DVD. Just one that I chose out of the thing. I said, well, since you enjoy this information, I think you'll enjoy this DVD.
Right.
The woman that came behind gave me $50. And she said, all I want is one DVD. And it's funny that you say the Dogon because that's the one she wanted.
Wow.
She said, but for what you did for that woman, you deserve the $50. It was in the conversation. It was in that this woman behind the woman heard, I would never take your last money. I know how much profit I'm making on this DVD.
Right.
And for me to deny you the knowledge simply because you cannot pay me what you pay me.
Right.
That's not the African way of doing it. That is not the universal way. The sun shines on us every day and gives us life for free. Ain't nobody paying for the sun.
Yeah.
What right do I have to do that to another person?
Right.
I got to pay my rent.
Right.
I got to put food on the table. There's no question about that. But Brother Andre, the real point comes into the community that's listening. Business is about communications. Good business is about good communications. It's about knowing your client. And at the same time, you must respect your client. And you must do good business, because chances are with that sister that I sold for $5, I made a whole bunch more with the sister that gave me 50.
Right.
And chances are that sister that gave me 50 is going to say, you know, that brother does good business.
Oh, yeah.
And she will recommend me to somebody else. The elder sister that I sold for $5 say, that's a good young man. You should go see him. You should go buy his stuff.
Yeah.
You're creating clientele. And so good business is when the client respects the business person and the business person respects the client. Make a living, not a killing. Don't be selling stuff for $250. If you know your profit level, like with my oil, the price I request for my oil, I make a respectful profit for what it takes to get the bottle, to get the oils, to mix the oils, to package it and put it in place. It costs a certain amount of money. When I sell it, I get a profit back on every bottle of oil. If someone says, oh, I just love that scent, but I just have $10, well, I'll give it to you, because my profit level is still there.
Right.
But it's not the profit that I would make if I sold it to you for what I'm asking.
Right.
That's good business to me. If somebody, if somebody like the other day, somebody contacted me, email, and told me that they had not yet received the book, Spirituality Before Religions. And when I looked, they had ordered it like sometime in mid-March. And when I looked at it, it was something that unfortunately I overlooked. Okay. I emailed them back and I said to them, you know, my apologies. It is an oversight on my part. I will send you, this was on Saturday. And I said, I will have your book in the mail on Monday. I said, I want to thank you for your patience and understanding. And because of that, I'd like to send you a bottle of my oil, Happy and Kush, in honor of your understanding. So if I do something that is incorrect, I don't talk about, no, I did it. I say, the customer is always right. And because of an oversight, here's what I'm offering you, out of respect for my oversight. Because I'm supposed to get that book out to you as soon as possible.
Right.
And if in my looking at all of my orders, I overlook you, that's on me. And it is only good business that I give to you something to let you know I appreciate the fact that you're still doing business with me.
Right. Right.
Because even though that individual had to wait for the book, she'll say, you know, that brother does good business.
There you go. Yeah, no, it's real. And it's so funny that you said that. I'm gonna make sure that I clip this particular part, just this part alone of the video, and send it to one of my sons. I was talking to him earlier about doing things for the right reasons. And we had a conversation a few weeks ago. He had a flat tire. I was changing his tire, helping change his tire and all that. And you know, he was appreciative, but I said, you know, he said, I hate to put you out of your way to have to come out here and do this time. And I said, it's not about that. It's about making sure that you do the right thing, you know, and take care of the people who, you know, who matter to you. I said, but what happens in life is when you do the right thing and you do the right thing because that's the right thing to do, somehow the universe is always going to give you back blessings. I don't try to do the right thing seeking blessings, but I just know when you do the right thing just because you're supposed to, blessings come your way. And it's so crazy how full circle today with the conversation. He was on the verge of getting a new job. And I had the opportunity, like I was telling you off air, about meeting, you know, with some potential clients for my business. And I was telling him, I said, you see, that night we was talking about, you know, me coming to help you out with the tire and all that. I said, I didn't do it because of that, but I said, this is one of the things I was telling you. I feel like when you do good business or you do good by people, good is going to come back to you. I said, and then, you know, now here it is a couple of weeks later, and we both had 2 opportunities on the same day, you know, that's going to be, you know, very fruitful in the future. So that's powerful. I definitely see it. And I hope that we as a human, human nature can do better with doing good business, and especially us in our community, we're doing good business. And I feel like there's a lot of us that are, but for those who, I feel like can turn it into great business, I think we need to take it to the next level.
And what's interesting is that what you just said is that principle of ma'at, reciprocity.
That too, yep.
And that's good business.
I was thinking that when you was explaining your story, I was like, that's my art.
That's
exactly
that is ma'at. That is reciprocity. You shall get what you give. What goes around comes around. So this dual interview today with your son and yourself is reciprocity.
Right.
And when we understand that principle, we then concretize, we solidify the fact that we're going to live a life in understanding this. When you do good, good comes back. When you do evil, evil come back. Just like that ball that you bounced against that stone wall.
Right.
You throw something good at the wall, something good will come back.
Right.
You throw something evil at the wall, something evil come back. And you see, this is what I find very interesting. This is why I know that the way in which Western civilization is built, it's built on a depravity, a human depravity, an emotional instability, that they would create a society that we're living in that is so horrific to certain people.
Yeah.
Just to take myself out of and look at this conversation outside of the, let's say, the foundational Black American community. I remember, I taught for 31 years in South Central Bronx. The largest community in general was the Spanish-speaking community. Puerto Rico, República Dominicana, Mexicano, we had Colombians and things like that. Number of people. And when a couple years back, when the former president was in power, and I watched all those children being put in those cages, I can't explain to you how many children I've taught that was in my classroom that looked like those young people.
Right.
I felt for them. No child should be treated that way. And you see, this is where I, as a foundational Black American, see the commonality with my Spanish-speaking brothers and sisters, with my Caribbean American brothers and sisters. We as a people are all the same. And what's interesting, the very people that they're trying to keep out of the country were the original inhabitants of the country when the European came here for the first time and pushed them down south. So who the real illegal alien here? It's according to who you ask. This was the land of the African and the indigenous that would come out of the African, because this is the other thing we have to understand. The first people that came to this country were African people.
Right. Right.
The first 3 waves of humans were Africans. The Twa Mbuti, the Clovis Folsom, and the Algonquin. And then the first group of people, Africans, but impacted by the Ice Age, were the Inuit, or who we call the Eskimo. And then the 5th was the Asian migration, who was escaping Genghis Khan and the Mongolian invasions, that they would come and travel, be pushed south into Canada, onto the American hemisphere. And the people that we see today as the indigenous people, they are not the original people.
Right.
They are conglomeration, but the first peoples here were a melanated people known as the Twa Mbuti from Central and Southern Africa.
Right.
And they didn't come from the East. They came from Africa.
Right. And that was, I remember the book, but I can't remember. I want to say, was it Van Sertima that came before Columbus, who broke
They
all
came before Columbus, and also the other book, a student of Dr. Van Sertima, Dr. David Imhotep, wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans. That's another book that should be gotten. Dr. Imhotep is a friend of mine, and this brother dropped some knowledge and wisdom. Even in our own conversations that he and I have, he dropped some knowledge 120,000 years ago. He can trace the first humans coming to this continent, and they were black.
120,000 years ago?
120,000 years ago.
And what's the name of the book again, Professor Kaba?
The first Americans were Africans. He's got the 3rd edition out now. They found bones in San Diego, California of a black woman. They date her bones to be between 80 and 90,000 years old. I have a webinar up on the Black Hawaiians. We went and we did research in Hawaii on the island of Kona. And we did research on King Kamehameha. And we came to find out through the work of Dr. Clyde Winters, who's a brilliant scholar, that the first people that came through the East traveled, inhabited Hawaii, and then went and inhabited California, Queen Khalifa. They're known as the Lapita people, Lapita. They're called the Lapita people. And they were Africans on the continent that had come via southern China and the Nesian Islands, Melanesia, Polynesia, Micronesia, Philippines. These were black people, first people. Asians didn't exist at this point.
Right. 120,000 years.
120,000. And he said his work has been peer reviewed, which means that other scholars have looked at your work and they agree with what you're coming to. Verified, exactly. That's it. The check is there. Verified.
I got the blue check.
That's it.
Man, so let me ask you this, because I'm pretty sure I'm confident you know of it. But so where does that put the civilizations that were here that there's been tons of artifacts and tons of identifying artifacts that's connecting our Khmer ancestors in the Nevada area over there in the what is it called? The Grand Canyon.
Yeah. From my research there, that would come not just from a Kush Kemet legacy, but West African. We've been around a long time.
I know.
And once we break out of that mold that there's only certain groups of people, when the pyramids were being built in Kemet, great architectural advancements were going on in Nigeria and in Congo and in Southern Africa. We have to go back and see how long we've been on this planet and what we have achieved before there was any other group of people. There's only one race on the planet. There is no such thing as an interracial marriage.
Right.
It's intraracial because there's only one race.
Right.
Interracial means that there's more than one.
Right.
Intra means within the one. So even if an Irish man marries a foundational Black American woman, that's not interracial. That's intracultural. No, that's intraracial, but intercultural. Because Irish is a culture, but foundational Black American is a culture. So it's intercultural, but it's intraracial. But there's only one race.
Right.
And that race was conceived, born, nurtured, sustained, educated, technologized, intellectualized in Africa. And when Africans got their show together, then they took it on the road and peopled the planet. It make no difference what culture you're from. You are from Africa.
That's facts. And to write that fact in stone, because I know you know this, the oldest human remains found on the planet. How old are those remains?
It's hard to say. Right now, they go back, they got Ardipithecus that they're taking them back to about 4.3 million years. I'm telling you, it goes back farther than that because research has been done. Here's something interesting that they have found in parts of Ethiopia and in Kush because of the terrain. You see, you might not see this in Central and Southern Africa because you're either in the forest, the Ituri forest, or you're in grasslands. But when you get up into the mountains of Ethiopia, you start getting into areas where you're going to have volcanoes. And so what they were able to do is, in going up into Ethiopia, looking at Laetoli, for instance, Laetoli, the Laetoli footprints or footsteps. When the 6 forms of human beings were on the planet, Australopithecus robustus, Australopithecus gracile, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Homo sapiens, Homo sapiens sapiens, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Homo erectus was the one that stood up straight. And they came out millions of years after the Australopithecines, okay? They came out after Homo habilis, which is the human of ability. They are measuring those footprints. And what they're beginning to realize in those footprints is that whoever walked upright.
Mm.
Up until then, they had given credit to the earlier humans. You see, but now they've invented machines that can measure, like when you're walking as the early human bent over, your footprints are probably just going to be the ball of your foot.
Mm-hmm.
But when the ball of your foot, when your whole foot, including your heel, is there, it means you're walking erect.
Right.
So now what they're doing is they're pushing Homo erectus back millions of years, as opposed to the giving that credit to the ones that walked like only on the balls of their foot.
Mm.
Now they're beginning to see that it was Homo erectus that walked in those in the footprints of the volcanic ash.
Mm.
Which is going to push the human family. If you're going to push Homo erectus back millions of years, you got to push Australopithecines back millions of years. So we don't know until we do this research ourselves.
Mm.
And that's what I'm attempting to just at least present to us to think about.
Right.
I'm not asking you to believe me.
Right.
I'm just asking you to think.
Right.
And so when you look at this concept, you begin to understand that if that's true, 120,000 years for humans to be in America is not far-fetched.
Mm.
If you're pushing humans back millions of years.
Right.
And I'll tell you something else. You're going to push that number back even further. 120,000 will go back even further. You just need to get the evidence.
Right.
There are civilizations built on top of civilizations.
Mm.
The Sphinx is not the head of a man and the body of a lion. The Sphinx is the head of a woman, an African woman on top of a lioness.
Mm.
That was built 10,000 years ago on the cusp of Virgo and Leo. Virgo, the woman, Leo, the lion.
Wow. Mm. So the Sphinx that we're seeing now was built 10,000 years ago, and there were civilizations that was older than that was
Yes. Oh,
built
yes.
on top of that.
Well, this civilization built beneath that, particularly even with the sands of the Sahara.
Right, right, right.
You know, everybody give credit to Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. You can go back thousands of years before that.
Right. Right.
It's not until we do this research ourselves. Because you see, when I've dealt with other scholars of other cultures, they call me, they say to me that I'm like changing history. I say, no, I'm not revising history. I'm returning history.
Mm. I like that.
And we have to be bold enough to get into their face and let them understand Your scholarship is not the measure by the way in which I wish to measure my scholarship by. I appreciate what you did, but you're not accurate. I am more accurate than you. And they, because they're not used to being spoken to like that.
Right, right.
But I know through evidence, this is something that Dr. David Imhotep told me. Because he's always saying, like he said to me one day, everybody talks about truth and facts. He said, but that's not what you should be focused on. Evidence. I'm gonna give you a truth and a fact. Yesterday in New York, it rained real hard. That's a fact. But today the sun shone. And that's a fact. So what was true and factual yesterday is not true and factual today. Situations alter cases. And so what I deal with is evidence. The evidence is yesterday water was on the ground. The evidence, there was no water on the ground today. So it didn't rain.
Right.
That's how I can say what I said. There's the water on the ground yesterday, no water on the ground today. That's evidence.
Yeah.
It's called measurable. You can measure it. Evidence. And everyone's talking about, well, that's a fact. No, that's not necessarily a fact.
Right.
It may have been a fact yesterday, but it's not a fact today.
Right.
What you're saying was a fact and the truth yesterday, but it's not the truth and fact today. So what I'm presenting to you as it relates to spirituality before religions is today's evidence. And what we have to do is be bold enough to be willing to say that, but also I don't really want to talk to them. This big argument about Egypt being black, or was it black? I'm not going to argue that. Egypt was black. End of conversation.
Right.
If you want to argue, because when you argue that, you give them the right to have a legitimacy of their point of view. And I'm not going to give that to you.
Right.
There are other people that will argue with you, debate you. Not me. Egypt was black. End of conversation.
Right.
This ain't no debate. Dr. Clark used to say, to have a debate, you got to have two sides. You don't have a side.
That's facts. That is big facts.
Plus, I'd rather be on the Prolific Perspectives podcast and talk to the community that really is engaged in this conversation. I'm not going to try to convince somebody of something. If I have to convince you of what I'm saying, there's nothing I can say that will convince you.
Right.
If I don't have to convince you, then let's just roll back our sleeves and get it on. I'm done with conversions, man.
Yeah, no, that's real. That's real. I'm gonna switch lanes one more time. I know time is getting a little late, but I got one thing that I did want to get your take and some knowledge from you with is it was May 3rd, 4th, I believe. We're walking into about 2 or 3 weeks into honoring the honorable ancestor El Hajj Malik El Shabazz. And I got the opportunity to actually present a workshop in Orlando in honor of him. It's a Black Book Festival that they do every year for his birthday. So this year I get to do a workshop for them with young kings, and I'm looking forward to that, especially to do anything in his namesake. But I know you have a great love for him, the honorable ancestor, as well. So can you kind of tap into the significance of Brother Malcolm and how can we, this is a phrase that I like to use, how can we not only reverence him with libations, but how can I pour intellectual libations in his honor?
One thing I've looked at Malcolm as I've grown, I taught a college class on Malcolm for 11 years. Malcolm was uncompromising. Malcolm was willing to give up his life for what he believed.
Yeah.
Malcolm had his challenges as a human being, as we all do.
Yep.
Myself, no doubt.
Me too.
We all have our humanity. That's what makes us humans.
Right.
But Malcolm was uncompromising, and he could not be bought. There was nothing that attracted him. The one thing that I've admired about of the many characteristics that Malcolm had that were great, the only way that we could ever truly honor anyone that has been so great is to continue their work.
Mm.
You can name all the schools, the streets, you can put their face on stamps. But all that is empty if you don't continue their work. The only way I can honor El Haj Malik El Shabazz, Malcolm X, is to continue his work. And while the work that I do may not be the work that he did his work the way he did it. And I am an educator specifically of children, but of people in general. I'm an educator.
Mm-hmm.
That's my lane. And the one thing that I admired about Malcolm was the fact that his character was such, they never had to send undercover agents to figure out what he was doing. Because Malcolm would tell you to your face what he was doing. That is how bold and bodacious he was. He would tell you to your face what he was doing. Others, you may have to send people in to figure it out. They're doing their thing. They're doing it undercover. They're sending messages, they're a little secretive. Malcolm was never secretive. Malcolm was right up in your face, no matter who you were.
Right.
He would do it with respect and dignity. I never heard him curse. He never raised his voice. But he would tell you exactly what his concept was. And I've always tried to replicate that in the work that I do. Because that's a quality in the human being that Malcolm used to always say, that he could disagree with you 99% of the time. But if you were sincere, he could respect you. I use the word authentic. Means the same thing, sincere.
Right.
Malcolm was authentic. He was sincere. There was no game with him. This is where he was coming from. This is what he was doing. Embrace it or drop it.
Right.
And so it is that authenticity, that sincerity that I've always attempted to replicate in my own life. So that when I talk to my people, they may disagree. I've had people of other cultures tell me, I really like you, but what you say gets on my nerves. And I say, well, that's good.
Right.
Because I told you in the beginning of my presentation, don't believe a word I say.
Right.
I'm just here to make you think.
Right.
And the fact that I got on your nerves made you think about what I was saying. So you're telling me that I was successful.
Right.
Because I'm not here to be liked by you. My purpose is not to be liked, including my own people. Because a lot of people got little, feelings about how I feel towards religion. I respect your right to profess anything that you want.
Right.
So I'm not speaking against what you practice. I just think that you're in jail and your religion is entombing you to reality. But look around you. Everybody fighting over religion.
Yeah, that's real.
Now, there's got to be something wrong if each of you professes that there is one God, one creator, and yet all of you are arguing about your religions. God is telling one religion, don't trust them. God is telling that religion, don't trust them. God is telling the other religion. Seemed to me that that's a mean God. He's trying to start some trouble here. Because if there is only one God, it doesn't make a difference how you profess to him, what language you speak to him.
Right.
It's one. So how could you be fighting each other over? So there's something wrong with that. And even in those religions, they broke up into gangs. Everybody in a gang.
Yeah.
They're even fighting amongst themselves.
Yep.
Evangelicals against the Methodist against the Christian against the Catholic. You can do the same thing with Hebrew.
Mm-hmm.
There's many different factions of Hebrew.
Right.
There's many different factions of Islam. Shia, Sunni, Orthodox. How could that be? If there's only one God, one Allah, one Yahweh, how could you be fighting? Not just between each other, but within each other. So there are those that have a challenge. And just to kind of round this story out, I always tell this story about when I was speaking in a church.
Mm-hmm.
I asked the pastor, I said, Pastor, you sure you want me? He said, yeah, come on. The congregation got to hear what you got to say.
Oh boy.
So I said, okay. So I'm getting into my conversation. And there are people of the church, and there are people that are not part of the church, but came to hear my presentation. Mm-hmm. Beautiful church, wonderful atmosphere. Sister gets up and she says to me, all I want to know is one thing. Is Jesus Christ your Lord and Savior? And I said, yes, Jesus is my Lord and Savior. She's happy. She sits down. I keep answering questions. A brother stands up and says, you know, I'm not part of this church. And he said, I'm really sorry I came because I had a view of you about how you felt about religions and about Jesus. And he said, when I heard you say that Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior, he said, man, come on, help me understand you. Because I never thought you'd say something like that. And so I said, well, brother, my sister and yourself neglected to ask me one very important question. And that question is, who do I perceive Jesus to be? Mm. She asked me if Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. I said, yes, Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. You're concerned because I'm willing to say that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, but nobody has asked me, who is Jesus Christ to me? I am Jesus Christ. Mm. You are Jesus Christ.
Right.
You are your own Lord and Savior.
That's real.
We are the Heru, the resurrected ones that came up out of the ancestral line to live on this planet. Mm. And it's the same thing with my regard and respect for Islam. Islam came out of the mountains of Ethiopia with Bilal. Hebrew, that is Akhenaten and the 18th dynasty. All Black, all African, all our story. Beautiful story. Foundational story for us to be able to move forward with a spiritual understanding of who we are as a people and what our destiny is on this planet. And I will end as I began. It's going to be all right. After the dust settles.
Right.
And this Oman Empire is toppled once and for all. And we rise up through this concept and are able to do what we were born to do, which I believe was to save this planet. Not just each other, save the planet. Because after we get ourselves together, now we got to free the land. Mm. We have to clean the air,
right,
the land, the water. We have to bring it back to its natural ways. And this is our job. And this is why we are who we are, because we have the DNA of the pyramid builders, the DNA of the plantation dwellers. We have the DNA of those that grew up in the project, and we have the DNA of those who are yet to get into the promised land. Because Dr. King was right. We're going to get to the promised land. That's good news. The bad news is, for some of us, the way we act, we ain't going to make it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say who it is that's going to make it and not make it.
Right.
That's a choice that each of you has to make. But just remember the principles of Ma'at: truth, justice, harmony, balance, order, arrangement, morality, and reciprocity. Probably one of the most important people. I respect Albert Einstein. He was a very intelligent man, a very kind person too. But the greatest scientist of the 20th century, beyond a doubt, was George Washington Carver. He saved America from their cash crop by growing peanuts and soybean in the soil. Like Jesus bringing Lazarus back to life. George Washington Carver single-handedly brought the earth back to life. Know your environment. Know your nature. That's wealth. You shall reap what you sow. So my question to us as we move on is, what are you going to sow? Because what you're going to sow is what you're going to reap. You're going to get back what you give back. And so this is what we have to understand. And we don't do what we do for our ancestors. Our ancestors did for us. What we're doing is we're doing for the children yet to be born. We don't pay back, we pay forward. So, family, may I encourage you to go to my website, www.kabakamene.com, and my Instagram page, which is my community bulletin board, Kaba Kamene, Kabakamene. And you can get my books. I've got 5 out now. I'm working on my next one, which is on melanin. It's called Gods on Earth.
That's what's up.
And so that's what we're working on. And when you support your teachers, your scholars, your community, then we get a chance to support you. That's what gives me a chance to travel to Tampa. It's what gives me a chance to travel to Atlanta. If I'm reading a book, Sister Raketti Wimby, who teaches Medu Neter or hieroglyphics, recommended a book on ostriches. It's a representation of Ma'at. Because of your support, I was able to go and order the book. When I order the book, I learn. When I learn, I do a webinar or a quibinar that's going to support the community. So when you support us, we support you. Brother Andre, thank you for this opportunity.
Absolutely. I appreciate you, Professor Kaba. And what I'll do, I'll get all the links to everything, to the bios, to the IGs, to the website, everything. I'll put all the links in the description on the video once I get it edited and uploaded too. And then also, matter of fact, your link tree has everything on it, right?
Yes, my link tree and my website, both. Okay. Sounds good to me, brother. Looking forward to it.
Likewise. I appreciate you, Professor Kaba. So I'll be in touch soon.
Oh, man, I appreciate you, man. Give my regards to your queen and to your family.
I will, most definitely. I appreciate you.
Yeah.